out to vote. And that's one of the things we also know. Of course, we saw that on ground and we expected it because of the way people were turning out to cast their ballots during that election. And the way it was that the major issue still remains the issue of vote buying, which we saw. And of course, the clip you played where we spoke to someone who confirmed to us, an APC woman leader who confirmed to us that they paid 5,000 naira at that particular point. That's in Ushu, that's in our local government area of the state, where we noticed that it was not just in that particular place. There were other areas. We noticed it from Akure North, where we saw people fighting over money, and we also noticed that, of course, some agents were not happy that a particular political party was paying better than they were paying. So it became an issue for them. And of course, if we look at the way security was during that election, the deployment of our security agencies is something we need to start talking about. Of course, when you announce that you've deployed 36,000, 30,000, 20-something thousand officers to protect voters, protect materials, and those involved in an election, we need to start asking for results, because some of the things that happen sometimes, of course, it's important to state that the election was largely peaceful. In majority of the places there were no incidents, really, no major incidents, aside, of course, there was an incident in Idori where there were gunshots in Akoko to a part of Akoko. We touched Idori, and of course there was some form of apprehension. It appeared that it became a sort of a battleground. But it was also stated ahead of the election that these were places we would consider hotspots. Idori, Akoko. We're also looking at Okeibo, places that it was possible that people would consider a place where it would be tight and difficult to access. But beyond that, the security agencies were looking away when some infractions were being committed. And we saw that also. You see them gisting somewhere while somebody was paying people for their votes.
All right. Thank you, Lekan. We'll definitely come back to you, especially with the issue of security. What were the security officials doing while people were brazenly buying votes and, all those other disruptions were going on in those units. But let me move over to Mr. Ologun. Are you still with us, Mr. Ologun?
I'm very well with you.
Yeah, so we have seen how this election panned out, and you could hear from our correspondent, Lekan Akindeji, say there was low voters turnout, we had vote buying, and also some disruptions in some, wards and polling units. But how would you rate this election overall, with everything that has happened? Aiyedatiwa coming first, Bola Ajayi second, and Adeyemi Nejo of the ADP coming third.
Well, generally speaking, what happened in Akure over the weekend, for me, was not something surprising. The victory of Aiyedatiwa didn't come as a surprise for somebody like me. I knew ab initio that there was no way that election would have held, and a lucky Aiyedatiwa would not have won that election, given the circumstances that was prevalent before the election of Saturday, and the fact that there seems to be an elite consensus to have him have a term in office to create room for a wider aspiration and a wider, more competitive election after the 4 years. What probably I didn't see coming is the 18-0 thing. I was before the election that there is virtually no way a lucky Aiyedatiwa will have won the election in Eseodo, which is the hometown of Agbola Ajayi.
Yeah. And
I was hoping, going by records or facts before now, I was hoping that there is no way the APC could defeat Professor West. That's the deputy of Agbola Ajayi in Idori. Because even when he was not on the ballot, he has often defeated the incumbent APC in all the previous elections in Idori. So I was hoping that at the worst, it was going to be a 15-2 thing. So the only surprise in this election is the 18-0 scenario. And I must also add that this is the margin or the figures scored or polled by Lucky Aiyedatiwa is the highest that any governor has recorded since the return of democracy in 1999. From Adefarati to Olusegun Agagu to Olusegun Mimiko to even late Rotimi Akeredolu, this is the highest anybody has had. Then, another thing in that election was the voters' apathy. The fact that not so many people came out to vote. For somebody like me, it didn't also come as a surprise. There were a lot of factors responsible, which were pointers to the fact that we're not going to have a high turnout in that election. One of it is the state of the states, how poor people have become, how much of confidence people have lost in the electoral system, coupled with the fact that the two major candidates in that election were from the same senatorial district, were from the same federal constituency, not even just senatorial district, but they are even from the same federal constituency. And given the fact that the people of the North, or Akoko, given the fact that they lost Rotimi Akeredolu before the expiration of his term, a lot of them were feeling unconcerned. They see it as a battle of the South. Let them go and slug it out. So all of these factors were responsible for the low turnout in election. But in all of this, the security forces didn't do so well. Maybe if there's an hero in this election, it probably will have been INEC, who even though did not perfect their dealings, even though they did not do so excellently well, but there is an improvement in the activities and the deliverables of INEC.
Mr. Logo, let me butt in here. Please allow me to come in here. Yes, thank you. Now, you mentioned, the fact that there was an elite consensus of some sort to allow Lucky Aiyedatiwa retain that seat as governor, because according to the law, he wouldn't be able to contest again. Do you consider that an Agboola Ajayi might be part of this plan? Probably he was bought over some sort, because people said this election didn't look like a battle. It was just like people going to vote and everything going on. It didn't look like an Agboola Ajayi really wanted to win this governorship election.
Well, contrary to that opinion, I happen to know the two of them very closely. And I can confirm to you that Agboola Ajayi could not have compromised this election. If there's anything Agboola Ajayi has ever wanted to be, it is to be the governor of Ondo State. But there's little to what Agboola Ajayi could do, because those who could have stood by him as his backbone disappointed him by pitching tent with his opponent, that is the Lucky Aiyedatiwa, because the political elite saw the possibility of a quick rotation of power with a Lucky Aiyedatiwa other than an Agboola Ajayi that has the propensity of spending 2 terms in office. That's 8 years. Lucky Aiyedatiwa only spent 4 years. One of the people that Agboola Ajayi could have depended upon would have been the former governor of the state, Olusegun Mimiko. Don't forget that when Agboola Ajayi contested as the governorship candidate of the ZLP in the previous election, he had the total and absolute support of Olusegun Mimiko as the leader of that party. But prior to this election, the political ethics of Olusegun Mimiko practically stopped to support a Lucky Aiyedatiwa. All the followers of Mimiko decamped support Aiyedatiwa in this election. Maybe the only thing we did not see was Olusegun Mimiko coming to declare openly for Lucky Aiyedatiwa. But everybody in the political ethics of Olusegun Mimiko supported Aiyedatiwa. So that was a big blow for Agboola Ajayi. Don't also forget that the immediate part candidate of the PDP in the last election, Jegede, is now the Jegede Advocate of Nigeria, also stood aloof. He was not seen anywhere campaigning for Agboola Ajayi. He did not participate in the process. So it was a case of, how do I put it now? It was a case of a child without a father and a mother for Agboola Ajayi. He was more of a lone ranger. And shortly before the election, a lot of big wigs in the PDP decamped to the APC. And that's why I talked about the likelihood of the elite conspiracy to have a Lucky Aiyedatiwa to become governor so that power can rotate as soon as possible. If you look at the trajectory of history, in 1999, we had an Adefarati who spent 4 years from the north, from Akuba Oko precisely. Power shifted to the south with an Olusegun Agagu. He didn't finish the second term before the court sacked him. Power shifted back to the central with Olusegun Mimiko. Olusegun Mimiko attempted to distort that order by ensuring that Jegede emerged as the candidate of the PDP to succeed. Unfortunately, that calculation failed, and power returned to the north again with Akeredolu. Now, with a Lucky Aiyedatiwa, power has shifted to the south. So the central are waiting, particularly Akure people are waiting to have governorship rotated to them as soon as possible. And that was what I meant by the headlines conspiracy, not necessarily involving an Agbola journey.
All right. Thank you. So many talking points there, especially what you have said about maybe Lucky Aiyedatiwa having only a shot at being governor, just a term, because he has, served out the term of his boss who has passed on. Many persons will dispel that notion and that line to say the Constitution says otherwise, because or maybe is up for interpretation depending on who is interpreting it, to say that has been set aside. Number two, some other persons will say maybe an Agbola Ajayi got what is due him, because we learned there are some insinuations and understanding some quarters that he really dealt a very big blow to the chance of Eitai Ojegede when it was looking like it was Eitai Ojegede that was going to emerge at the last election, because it was prevailed upon by so many persons that he should step down. But instead, he went ahead, and contested and, snatched many votes that many persons believe could have been Eitai Ojegede's own. And maybe that is why people like Eitai Ojegede, with his stature, and many persons didn't want to identify with him, that it didn't work, or, he went ahead, although it was his right to contest even when he was sought upon, prevailed upon to step down. Now it's payback time, and that's why possibly an Eitai Ojegede or many other persons didn't really support him as you would ordinarily think they would. But, that on one side. Many talking points, especially the process. No, we're not even talking about the result majorly today, because it looked like a landslide. A Lucky Aiyedatiwa got almost thrice, 366,000 to 117,000. That was more like a walkover, actually. So these are some of the issues. But we take these clips, and it will show some of the things that we'll be looking at, when we come back from that, some of the things that happened on the ground on that particular day. So, gentlemen, and of course, I know esteemed viewers, please stay with us.
More arms. Those people that is around this place. It's no. Hey Joe, hey Didi, be on your feet. Sorry, sir. Those people that is around us here. Hey Didi, sir, be at large. Someone is around this place. I told you. Be at large. Be at large.
Give me the key.
We just slap now.
1, 2. Are you doing it or not? Are you doing it or not? Open it for me. Open it. Move back. Open it from inside. Open this side. Hey, open. Open
What are some of the things that have happened here? What is happening is that everybody came here to vote and leave. They are voting, they are showing their trying that voter, I must see this before I pay you money. They are distributing 7,000 naira to each person. That is why, and meanwhile, in this unit, we don't have any issue here before we are. This is the largest unit in Obaile. This is where Kabiyesi Oloba of Obaile is voting. This is where Kabiyesi family.
Your name, ma'am?
My name is Yemi Shaibu, women leader in really what.
Let's talk about this election. How has it been?
This election, after all, I like her. As then they do this election today, no fight, no anything. Everybody votes. Nobody fights today. I like this election. Pass the one where they vote.
Well, before that, they always fight, but today, people like say something changed.
Today now, everything's okay. No fight, no anything.
We come here say, and say some of the Bible say like 10,000, 15, 20,000. How much some party they sell?
Today now 5,000 and pay for this show. All people now 5,000 naira. Nobody say boya 10,000.
Blue or yellow party or everybody.
Now 5,000 then bring come today.
All right, these are some of the things that we've seen, play out on that particular day, 16th of November, that Saturday, on the day of the election. Many of them like that. But let me come to Lekon. You are on ground. In fact, you did some of these interviews. And let's take the talking points one by one. What would you think was really how do I say it now? What was obvious that was seen, in every of those polling units that you visited? Because it's more like the vote buying thing was the canopy on every other thing that happened. Is that true?
Yes, of course. But, we need to understand that it's not a new thing. It's not a conversation that we are just starting.
Yeah.
We started this conversation a long time ago. I think about 3 elections since 2015, I should say, where we had the introduction of money on a large scale in our elections. And it has continued. We were in Edo State. We saw what happened. People who came out really came out because of the money. And they will tell you it's because of the money. Now it has continued in Ondo State. It's not the first time, of course. So the way it is now, it's as if we need to now start doing more. Something needs to be done. It's beyond advocacy. It's beyond appealing to people now. The people are aware, and it's something that they are keen towards. They want to come and collect money. So, and of course, the politicians are complicit. They're the ones giving the money, and the voters are collecting it. But that's it's something that we had prepared for. We expected that would happen, and it's not limited to one political party, but it's in places where you would consider the strongholds of the opposition. For example, what would happen would be that the party in government would want to outspend that opposition. So it's about who spends more. But of course, just like Mr. Ologun said, we expected a victory for Aiyedatiwa in this election. It was sure. It was a given. So, and I shared it ahead of the election. I said this was going to be not a contest in some ways. It was not going to be a contest. So I wasn't expecting a stiff contest. I was just expecting that.
Why? Because he's a big candidate, or because he's the incumbent, or because he has done enough to earn the trust of the people, or there's so much love him, or because he has enough money to throw around? Why do you think it was a settled case?
No, it was, that it's in a state where you have an opposition party that you will say that the opposition will put up a challenge. The PDP has not been an opposition, a real opposition in those states for a while now.
Okay. So, and
that is the truth. The major figures in the party left the party, and there was no way that Agbolaja he only got support from outsiders, people who governors from outside of the state. And how much of an impression can they make on the people who will cast their votes? And of course, there are other indices of the people in the other central districts of the state. did not show enough interest. They were not interested in Agbola Ajayi because they feel he's from Ondo South. What's our business? For those, I, for example, I'm from Ondo Central, and when I look at how the whole thing is, for me as a journalist, if I was going to vote, I wouldn't also have shown interest because I would feel okay.
Lucky Aiyedatiwa is from Ondo South as well, isn't it?
I didn't get that.
I said Lucky Aiyedatiwa as well is from Ondo South, and he got votes from.
Yes, of course. It's why people in Ondo North and Ondo Central did not show enough interest. And if you look at the votes that came out, the lowest of those votes came out from the other central districts. If you analyze those votes, but beyond that also, the question of the support that Aiyedatiwa got, and of course, money played a role. It's a fact, but it's not just money from the APC. The PDP